If you're into K-pop, it's impossible for you to be unaware of what is going on at Hybe. It's been a while since this mess started, but I feel like things went out of control in the past couple of days, following Belift's release of a video that just happened to make things much worse for everyone. But now, let's talk about the biggest problems with this whole situation. First of all, you gotta keep your problems behind closed doors. I find it absolutely ridiculous how everything was made public when it could have easily been resolved behind closed doors. God only knows how many internal conflicts companies face on the daily, and we never know about it, because unlike Hybe, they know how to be professional and solve things without turning everything into a show. But I guess maybe they thought even negative attention was still attention after all. From Hybe openly calling out heejin, to heejin holding a fucking press conference, to Belift releasing that fucking embarrassing video to get back at heejin. This whole situation has been handled in the worst way possible. None of these things should have been made public, because there was no need for us to know anything that was going on, and by keeping everything private, the artists wouldn't have been damaged like they're being damaged now. Everything most likely started with heejin expressing her complaints to Hybe, and instead of solving things privately and only involving lawyers, Hybe had the brilliant idea of putting up a show for us to enjoy, which was fun and entertaining for the first couple of days, because we all love a bit of drama, but it stopped being fun real quick, and now we reached the point of no return. The fundamental problem that started it all was the overlapping concept between New Jeans and ILIT. It's no secret that as soon as ILIT debuted, 90% of the K-pop stan community instantly thought of New Jeans. I talked about this already in a previous video, but basically here's what I think. It doesn't really matter if technically ILIT and New Jeans don't have the exact same sound or the exact same concept. Watching ILIT still made most people instantly think of New Jeans, and that is a problem in itself, a problem that could have been avoided in the first place, because the company could have predicted this would happen. Considering both groups have the same age range, the same target, and both debuted so close together under the same company, the comparison was inevitable, and the least Belift could do was trying to give ILIT something pretty different from New Jeans. If ILIT debuted with this concept in a few years instead of now, it would have prevented people from immediately associating them to New Jeans. But because New Jeans are still very much active and still very much relevant, debuting ILIT so close to New Jeans is something that required the company to differentiate their concepts more. Even if I totally understand that they don't have the exact same concept and sound. In fact, if ILIT had been from another company that wasn't Hybe, most people would have never thought to compare them, or at least not as many people, and I honestly don't care how hard you try to deny it. The similarities are there, and it's no coincidence that so many people felt like these two groups were kinda overlapping in concept. And I know this whole copy thing might seem hypocritical considering it has been revealed that in order to create New Jeans, heejin drew quite a lot of inspiration from a Mexican group called Jeans, a group that was active in the 90s. The name comparison is clearly obvious, and looking at the group's aesthetics you can also tell they heavily inspired heejin for the creation of New Jeans. Let's say she didn't try to hide it, and this is pretty obvious. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like this is totally fine because it definitely comes off as cheap. Getting so heavily inspired by a group to the point you basically give your group the same name. But with that being said, this is in no way comparable to drawing inspiration from a group that is still active, still relevant, still known, and that also comes from the same company. I'm not condoning heejin for basically appropriating Jeans' style and image to give it to New Jeans, but at least Jeans and New Jeans have never been and will never be competitors, because these groups were active in two completely different times and they targeted different targets. So there's that. But I just have to say, for being regarded as one of the best creative directors in K-pop, heejin surely made a pretty cheap decision, making New Jeans into a Jeans ripoff. But still, it's not as annoying as seeing a group having a very similar vibe to another group of the same company that is also active at the same time. Anyway, after the accusations against ILIT, Belift had the brilliant idea of making a video to debunk the ILIT copying New Jeans claims. But instead of showing some behind the scenes and some ideas that led to the creation of ILIT's concept, which could have helped proving they were not blatantly copying New Jeans, they just decided to name drop a bunch of groups, just like heejin had done in her conference, which was embarrassing. But at least you could say she was just a crazy woman going insane and making a fuss. whereas this video was posted with the whole company's approval, which makes it even more disappointing. First of all, they mentioned groups that they didn't want Islet to resemble. The first group was Blackpink, because they give off vibes of the perfect celebrities that can't be approached, and the second group was Hybe, because everyone looks like a doll and is envied like a princess. Now, I don't believe these comments were intended to shed a negative light on Blackpink and Hybe, but they came off as very objectifying, and also hypocritical, because I'm sure the same thing could be said about Islet. Everyone in Islet also looks like a doll and can cause envy in some of the people who are watching, but that's besides the point. The real problem is what Belift said about New Jeans, that despite being a young group, they were created to fulfill the fantasies of adults. This is extremely gross and definitely implies that New Jeans are only a sexual product to please older people, which is extremely disgusting and problematic because some of them are still minors, but it's also hypocritical, because this can literally apply to pretty much any group. Being sexualized by older stans is something that unfortunately can also happen to Islet. But instead of caring about protecting the idols, the company is just monopolizing this matter for their stupid battle. And I'd just like to say that New Jeans also got sexualized because of heejin and her problematic behavior. But this still doesn't mean that Belift can make this type of horrendous comments without facing any consequences. That's just fucked up on so many levels. And this fuck-ass company doesn't realize they're doing Islet more harm than good, especially by trying to prove New Jeans also copied choreos of other groups, using some mix moves for Ditto's choreo. Too bad that Ditto came out first, resulting in Belift looking even more incompetent. Like I said, this will damage Islet and will do nothing to help them. So, after this whole mess between the sub-labels broke out, you would think Hybe would do something. You would think Hybe would stop Belift from embarrassing themselves and damaging Islet. But no, absolutely not. Hybe isn't doing anything. And I feel like it's pretty clear why. Because they fucking hate heejin and they never gave a fuck about belift. Simple as that. I believe that if it was two different sub-labels fighting like this, Hybe would intervene. But since it's two labels that they don't give a fuck about or they straight up hate, they don't care if the artists get thrown under the bus. Try to picture this. If there's an office where two employees are being unprofessional and fighting like little kids, wouldn't the boss try to stop them to restore order? If it was a good boss, then yes. But Hybe is showing they are not a good boss. Mind you that if they were, we wouldn't even know about this mess because it would have been kept private. I believe there's no going back and Hybe's reputation as a whole is tarnished forever. They all made a fool of themselves and there's no turning back. It sucks because at the end of the day, it's always the artists that pay the consequences. Since everything seems to be a hot mess, it might be hard to think there could be positive outcomes to all of this, but I think there's actually a few. This whole thing was kind of a wake-up call and I actually think it will change things for the better when it comes to the future of K-pop. First of all, more people will finally realize how trash both Hybe, Belift and heejin are. They're all shady and money hungry. I feel like most people knew this already, but I'm glad that some of the people that were blindingly defending them have realized it's not worth ass-licking these trashy people. Second of all, I hope this drama will dissuade other companies to try and form a conglomerate like Hybe did. The Hybe label system is fucked up for many reasons, but mostly because they're unprofessional as fuck and they also employed a questionable individual like heejin despite the problematic things she did in the past. So God only knows which other problematic people are also working with Hybe. And mind you, Hybe was totally fine with working with a creep like heejin. They were fine until they weren't, but still, let's not forget how they enabled her and how they enabled Belift to say the fucked up things they said, which means Hybe is no better. Then this whole situation is highlighting the oversaturation of Hybe groups. Hybe has too many groups that often recycle concepts, too many groups whose comebacks often overlap, creating an unhealthy environment full of constant competition. I hope that after this Hybe will think about it twice before debuting groups so close together. And last but not least, if I'm not mistaken, the government is thinking about making a law regarding choreography copyright, which I believe is a great thing. Because as much as music is protected by copyright, choreographies should also be protected. So this is actually a nice thing that can positively impact K-pop and protect both choreographers and groups. Anyway, despite all the negativity, I feel like this drama might actually change things for the better. So these were my thoughts. There are more things to cover, but I feel like you all pretty much know everything already, and so I kinda just talked about things more generally. Personally speaking, I've always found Hybe having so many groups and sub-labels a negative thing, especially because Hybe is known to recycle concepts and have their artists promote close together. It was just a matter of time before tension built and something went wrong. It's funny because Hybe tends to treat their groups and labels as being part of a big family, but the moment something problematic happens, Hybe just takes a step back and lets the labels fight like immature children. Needless to say, this is not the way you're supposed to act. You should be much more responsible, especially considering how many artists and employees are depending on you. The Hybe label system is totally fucked up, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think down below. Bye everyone.